Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Autistic Voice Project. As always, I'm Matt Lowry from Louisville, Kentucky.
And I'm Erin Findlay from Napa, California.
And boy, we are recording this on the Friday the 13th.
That's right.
And this week we're going to be talking about why the state of autism awareness is as it is, and we are going to be talking about Uta Frith, one of the
Mm,
worst things to ever happen to autism. And we were talking earlier
sigh.
about how I am a single guy. I am on dating apps, and there's responses when I say, "Ah, yes, I'm into autism stuff." Either A, they have no idea what it means, or B, they know the wrong stuff. And I
Right.
run into like ABA people and trying to explain autism from the autistic perspective. It's if God, if somebody would understand, it would be fantastic. But again, generally speaking, they have no idea. And Uta
hmm
Frith is a major contributor to this, and she is also the reason why I got into many arguments at the last employer that I had before I started my own private practice, because
mm.
this woman has been ruining autism for decades. So what was the Betty doll experiment? The Betty Ann? What is this thing?
Oh, I don't even remember. And my brain is a little addled today because I'm getting over a cold. So,
Yes,
um,
and in our
yeah.
part two, we're going to talk about chaos because again,
Yes.
she doesn't understand
Yes.
the chaos. But we'll
Right.
we'll come back to that. Stay tuned, everybody.
That's
It'll
right.
connect.
That's right. That'll be
Uh,
next week.
yeah. But yeah, that's okay. Okay, so she is
What was
she is
that?
she is a non-autistic person
Yes.
who believes that everything about autism should be observable by non-autistic people.
hmm
Just like, a uterus should be observable by a dude, and to say, "Oh, yes, clearly you're fine because I'm not having your pain." So
Right.
it's, yeah, like, I don't see any spikes or anything. You're all clear.
hmm
But she is the one who developed the theory that we don't have theory of mind. She is the one
Yeah.
who developed this test of like, if you have a doll, what can the doll see? And the kids are like, "What do you mean? It's a doll. I don't understand what you're saying."
hmm
And there's like, and okay, so I'll give you an example from how I interpret it, because again, once again,
Yes.
I am autistic. I am the last remaining autistic person in Kentucky who does autism evaluations because everybody else got the burnout. And when I was working in community mental health, I would do autism evaluations from an autistic perspective. Once again, I was deeply in the closet at the time because I recognized that the people I worked for had no clue,
hmm
right? So I would do autism evaluations, and they made us give IQ tests. I give IQ tests, whatever. I did the ADOS. They also made me do like a WACE, yeah, WISH or
The
adult, yeah,
Wexler.
WACE. No,
hmm
the WASI.
No, the whisk for the
Wi-
children.
no, the oh God, the aptitude thing. It
The
also start
Wyatt.
Wyatt. There you go. Yes, God, I hate the Wyatt. I hate the Wyatt so much. I have I have memorized the thing about the baobab tree on the Wyatt, because it's just
Because you've done it
uh,
so many
so
times.
many times. Although when we
Yes.
went to Animal Kingdom, they're like, "This is the baobab tree." I started scripting the thing about the baobab tree from this because. And long
I
story
was
short,
I was like either that or you were having convulsions, one of the two.
yes, yeah, PTSD flashbacks. So anyway, long story short, in community mental health, when we gave the autism evaluations, you had to do an aptitude test, an IQ test, the ADOS, and parts of the NEPSI for attention and concentration and theory of mind. The theory of mind
Mm,
tests are stupid.
yeah.
They would have stuff like Bobby and Jenny went to the carnival. Bobby said, "Oh, hold on, I'm going to go get popcorn." And Jenny went from the tilt-a-whirl to the Ferris wheel. Where should Bobby look for Jenny? And the answer is at the tilt-a-whirl, wherever the first location was, instead of the second location where she actually was, because the popular belief among non-autistic people is that we don't understand theory of mind, rather than it being an age-dependent thing, and little kids might not have that because, again, they're little kids rather than being autistic, because
Right.
everything that
Right.
we know comes from measuring young white cisgender boys. And if
Who are upper middle class and can afford to get an autism evaluation.
exactly, all these
Mhm.
confounding variables are thrown in there, but again,
But
that
let's
doesn't
not factor
matter.
that in.
Yeah, exactly. So, bottom line, I didn't do that. And my supervisor, who was also not autistic, who once told me, "Matt, you can't diagnose autism and depression, or autism and anxiety, because all people with autism also have depression and anxiety." And I was like, "Thanks, Melissa. It's because of you that I have this." So, and it was
Oh,
just very,
I bet that went
very.
over like a turd in a punch bowl.
Oh yeah. Well, again, I stayed deeply in the closet,
Hmm.
and I work with some autistic people. Some of them didn't know they were autistic. Some of them are
Hmm.
very adamantly against that they're autistic. Two of them were in the closet at the time, and
Mm.
after we all left, we were like, "Oh yeah, I knew you were autistic. Oh, I knew you were autistic."
That's
And
right.
it was,
We got
"Hi,
along way too
Jessica."
well for you to not be autistic.
Yeah. Jessica Bonatakis was a friend from the time, and she's currently, I believe, in Colorado.
Mm.
She does telehealth across state lines. Hi, Jessica. But long story short, it got to the point to where, as an autistic person, I just got very frustrated, and I said, "So here's the deal. I have to give this test," and I had a file folder. And I put it in my desk drawer, and I closed the desk drawer, and I said, "Where's the file folder in your desk drawer?" And I was like, "Okay." So asked like a parent to leave the room, and the kid was still there. And I was like,
Hmm.
"Here, let's move the file folder over to this other drawer." And I asked the kid, "So where is parent going to look for the file folder?" And the kid was like, "In the original drawer." And the parent came back in, where's the file folder? In the original drawer. We all agreed that that was a stupid test, and that my supervisor would mean that that's not autism, and it that I would be writing a very bad report, and I apologize for it because. But again, I wouldn't come out and say I know better because I'm autistic. But
Right, right.
I still feel an incredible sense of guilt because of
Mm.
doing so many bad reports for so many people on Passport, our Kentucky version of Medicaid at the time, because a non-autistic person was in charge, was
Yeah.
gatekeeping the autism diagnoses, and a lot of this is due to Uta Frith.
Well, and in fact, I look, if you want to go read the original interview and listen to the podcast, where the like another related interview happened with her, like, okay, fine, but just prepare yourself because it's not, it's totally ableist. But
Yeah, you could also spend the time punching yourself in the belly. I'm
I
not
mean,
going to
you can,
judge, but yeah, I
yeah.
wouldn't do it myself.
I mean, I skimmed it, mostly so that you all didn't have to.
Yeah.
But
It's old woman yells at cloud.
well, and the thing is, it's such a classic power move of
Ah,
someone who is trying to reclaim a narrative that they created that
yeah.
keeps them in power,
Desperately
um,
clinging to relevance.
clinging to relevance, clinging to a narrative that keeps the current system in place,
Yeah.
right? And the reality is that we as autistic people, now that we have found ways through the internet and podcasts and things like that, have found ways to talk to each other and compare notes and be like, wait, we have these experiences in common.
Yeah.
um you know, the narrative of what does it mean to be autistic no longer is under the control of the people who are diagnosticians and researchers like Uta Frith, Simon Baron Cohen,
Yeah.
etc. By the
Yeah,
way,
Simon Baron
in case
Cohen's work is very much based on Uta Frith.
yeah, and by the way, in case anybody wonders, yes, Simon Baron Cohen is related to Sacha Baron Cohen. Like they're like
Yeah.
cousins or something. So
Yeah,
in case anybody wondered about that, I did for a while, so now you know.
yeah. I believe they're cousins, and
Yes.
Sacha Baron Cohen is probably one of us, because
Perhaps. I don't know. I don't
yeah,
find him
yeah,
funny at all, but
yeah. He's
but
very
yeah.
very good at masking. So it's very very interesting watching him prepare for a role and diving in and being very, adept at all of this. But
Yeah,
yeah,
and maybe now we know why Simon was so interested. I don't know.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because
But
that
the
is one of the ways it happens.
but the ableism
The
is
ableism
incredibly frustrating.
and the power dynamics are
Yeah,
just vivid. So, anyways,
yeah.
go on.
Yeah, because we love a good tangent, and this is the
Well,
thing,
but it
because
wasn't really a tangent. It was
yeah,
related.
yeah. So yeah, her work. She's been doing this for several decades,
Yeah.
right? And I mean, if she follows in the footsteps of like Leo Kanner, who believed that refrigerator moms were
Hmm.
were responsible for the autism because we didn't get enough love as children,
Right.
and instead of just saying, hey, maybe the parents were autistic, and that is how autistic parents interact with autistic children, and
And also maybe the autistic children of non-autistic parents experience more distress because of the lack of attunement
yes,
between a non-autistic parent and an autistic child, which
yeah,
leads to developmental trauma, not
yeah,
autism, but it does show up in more distress, which, by the way, is what the DSM criteria are for
yes,
autism.
yes,
It's
yes.
not actually autism, it's autistic distress.
Yes.
Um,
And this is a big
Fun fact.
reason why non-autistic clinicians can't tell the difference between CPTSD and autism, because so many autistic people have CPTSD.
Right.
Because once again, one of the autistic criteria in the DSM is that these traits bother the people around us. Not that it bothers us,
Right.
not that we are autistic ourselves. It's that our autistic, again, like it's not that we hit ourselves, because hitting ourselves is not part of autism. It's that we're in distress and we hit ourselves, and the people around us are like, man, that is inconvenient for me. And it's all of this is, and the quote unquote repetitive behaviors,
Hmm.
because my as a side note, my autistic son, we are recording this a week after daylight savings time started.
Which
And
is,
for
ugh.
me, I hate it. It is
Yeah,
one of my
same.
least favorite days, followed only possibly by daylight savings time in the fall. I don't like the change. I don't like setting all the clocks. But you know who loves setting the time on every clock he owns?
Oh,
My son.
yes. Yes.
So we have around probably 1100 clocks in our house, and
I thought
he
it was 1101 now.
uh, well, now it is. I got one earlier today, so yeah,
I was going
we've
to
upped.
say, didn't you just have
Yeah,
one on back order?
yeah. It came in today, so
See,
I had to send a picture to
1101.
my son. He's not here this weekend, but he wanted to see it when it got in, so I sent a
Of course
picture
he
to
did.
him. And so anyway,
His new friend
he
just arrived.
exactly. So he's been looking forward to this day for months, because I said in March we will push the clocks forward, and he was like, in March spring forward, in March spring forward. And I said, all right, this weekend we're going to spring forward. And he's been talking about this in every few minutes for the past month. He would say, in March we'll spring forward, on Saturday we'll spring forward, tomorrow we'll spring forward. And
Hmm.
then finally the day came, and he's gotten to the point where he's a very independent little guy. He wakes up on his own. He sets his alarm clock so he wakes up very early. Then he goes and pours his own cereal. He gets his milk. He sits and eats his cereal while listening to Peppa Pig. And then, if he feels like it, he'll come to me and he will wake me up, because he always wakes up before I do, because he's got 80 alarms. And he will say, Daddy, it's spring forward. And I was like, well, okay. So We went around the entirety of the house, and I got the clocks that were hung high, and he went ahead and just did the clocks that were low on his own. We put batteries in the clocks that needed batteries. That alone costs around $1,100.
Yeah,
And yeah,
batteries are
anyway,
not cheap.
so we went through and meticulously changed the time on every clock except for this one up here, which is an old school clock that was the joy of his Christmas. He wanted a clock just like the one he had in his classroom, which is an American time clock. And if you try to order the American time clock, you have to buy it for $500 from the website that that sells exclusively to schools. And on the website, they have to be plugged into the school system, which we do not have. And I was like, oh,
Mm.
sorry, buddy, we don't have the school mechanism for this. And he was very sad. I went on eBay and found a guy in Louisville who got a whole bunch of reclaimed American time clocks because
Nice.
previously, before having these wires in the schools, they were battery powered. So I got a battery powered clock for $25 that sets the
Ah.
time itself because it's
Ooh.
like that. And it's the batteries that you put in 8 AA batteries, and it
Yeah.
lasts for 5 years.
Okay. Nice.
And it changes its own time. And he's fascinated. He just sits there and looks at it. And he was just that was like the best thing he's ever gotten. Long story short, the quote
Or
unquote
short story
repetitive,
long.
yeah, exactly. The repetitive and the repetitive and the oh man, what's
Restricted and repetitive.
restricted interests.
Yeah.
This is his jam. He is so delighted by doing these clocks. It gives
Mhm.
him the greatest joy. And I'm
Mhm.
sure that to a non-autistic person, someone who doesn't understand, they might be frustrated that he loves clocks so much. I just love that he loves his clocks and that he has
Right.
this look of joy. As granted, it is a bit of a hassle to get out the step stool and get every single clock we own down. But the look on his face when we're doing it, he is enthralled. He is in a state of monotropic flow for hours and hours and hours. And he just loves our house is called Big Clock House because it came with a big clock. Because that's whatever it took to make him comfortable with a transition from my old house to my new house. That's what we took. But
Mhm.
Uta Frith would not understand this. Uta
No.
Frith would see this as something to be corrected, hence why
Right.
ABA is popularized these days.
Right.
Because people like Uta Frith see these traits on the outside and say, oh, I don't do that, and I know better than that. I must fix that. Oh, they're playing with toys wrong. I need to teach them better. I need
Mhm.
to make them play right.
Well, the other thing too is that kind of thinking is super steeped in capitalism, right?
God,
Because
yes.
ultimately, quote unquote, playing right or doing things right, there's a direct line between that set of ideas and
Yeah.
how quote unquote productive are
Yeah.
you as an adult.
And that
Which
leads into the
productive means how much money do you make for the company you work for, by the
yeah.
way.
Yeah.
It
And
isn't about how much joy you experience.
no.
It isn't about how much value you add to the world through art.
Yeah.
It's about how much money do you make for the company you work for,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and this leads into the whole like DSM 3-tier autism thing because level 1 generates capital. Level 1
Right.
means that you can go sit in an office and do the work that the boss tells you to do and you make
Right.
capital for, somebody. Level 2 means that you might be a slight drain on the capital because you have to utilize your health insurance to get supports. And level 3 means that you might not be able to have a job at all and that you're unable to speak and you require a lot of support and are therefore, dare I say, burdensome on the capitalists.
Yeah,
And
which
yeah,
is is no way to quote unquote evaluate the value of a human. You exist,
no.
therefore you are valuable. I'm going to
Yes,
say that again.
yes,
Listener, dear darling listener,
yeah,
you exist, therefore you are valuable.
yes,
Period. End of story.
yes. Yeah.
Okay, I'll get
Anything
off my
otherwise is
soapbox.
just madness. It's
Right.
propaganda designed by the billionaires to make you feel bad about not working harder for their benefit.
Right. Right.
And again, Uta Frith perpetuates this madness, and that
Mhm.
perpetuates the autism industrial complex with the ABA, because again, ABA is incredibly profitable with like 40 hours a week of nonstop behavioral intervention that goes and again, behavior techs are paid close to minimum wage. They've got minimal training. It goes into the person who owns the ABA complex,
Right.
and it goes into lobbying to keep ABA as the only quote unquote therapy open to autistic people. Everything is money motivated,
Right.
and it's ridiculous. Everything about this is very, very dehumanizing, and she supports all of this, and that's why she popped out of the woodwork out of so many years, because she wants some more money about this.
Oh, is that what it was behind? I wasn't even sure what prompted the thing.
Yeah, well,
The
again,
interview.
it could be that she's sitting there ranting at the wall about how. And okay, so this is another thing. Temple Grandin is bad. Temple Grandin is
Mhm.
bad at all this. Neurotypical people will say, "Oh, look how inspirational! A white woman that was affluent somehow overcame her autism, is now speaking." It's like, well, that happens a lot if you listen to the people who are speaking.
Mm.
But she was an affluent white woman who gets on to Pessy and says, "Yes, we shouldn't listen to autism advocates because they're not producing jobs, they're not producing capital. Why should we listen to these people? They should be normal, like me." And
Mhm.
again, everything about this is frustrating.
Yeah.
Everything about it, and Utterfrith does not like that the current paradigm, a word which here means entire worldview of autism, is
Yes.
now bending towards listening to autistic people, is now
Mhm.
listening to non-speaking autistics, because
Right.
we now have means for non-speaking autistics to communicate. She does not like that. We now have platforms for autistic advocates to speak instead of spending lots and lots of money on graduate degrees and getting into student loan debt and working in the field for many, many years and saying, "Oh yes, that kid can't be autistic because they made the eye contact."
Mhm.
She's very frustrated that she is no longer relevant in a world that never needed her to begin with. I
Yeah.
mean, honestly, the autistic people would be better off had she never said a word about autism and never had this weird theory of mind bullshit to begin with. And
Mhm.
that's why the whole double empathy problem is so important. And it wouldn't be the whole double empathy problem is Milton saying, "Have you considered that people think differently?" What a
Right.
wonderful, strange concept.
I know.
Milton comes out and says, "Have you considered that autistic people might be human?" We wouldn't need
Right.
that if Uta Frith didn't assume that we weren't human to begin with.
Mhm.
A lot of the
Mhm.
work that we do as autistic advocates is undoing the damage that people like Uta Frith has done. She does
Mhm.
not deserve a platform. And again, that's why we're not reading her actual words or pointing you to the website or doing everything else other than
Right.
just, talking about
Naming that it's a shitty thing that happened,
exactly.
because we know that people who listen to us
Yeah.
and who may find us will be like, well, why this is important, why aren't they talking about it? So we're
Yeah, yeah.
talking about it, but we're
We are.
talking about it on our terms.
Yeah.
We're not going to platform or promote
No, no.
someone whose views are inherently harmful
Right.
and ableist
Yeah.
and disableist
Yeah.
and gatekeeping
Yeah.
and problematic.
Yeah. Yeah. It bothers me greatly that there are people out there that say something along the lines of, "Well, you should have both sides of the opinion on there,"
No.
and whereas one side says, people are human, and the other says, "No, some people are not human." It's like, that seems
Yeah,
problematic. It's
that's
like
not a
saying,
two sides to listen to.
yeah, yeah, it's like saying, one person says you should put gasoline in your car, and the other one says, have you tried hitting it with a brick? Maybe it will go if you hit it with a brick. That's
Hmm.
insane. There
Yeah,
are
that's not an opinion worth considering.
no, 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 no. And there are lots of opinions not
Not
worth
worth considering.
considering. Yes.
Yes.
And this is where we have to, this is why listening to autistic people is important, because if someone says, God, I don't know what there is some controversy over the interpretation of vagus nerve stuff. And
Hmm.
that's, we need to know more about how that works, why it works. It's good to have people say, well, my research says this, well, my research says this, instead of saying,
Hmm.
have you tried taking it out? No, no, that seems like that would be very bad. Let's not do
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
I can't think of any other thing, because again, it's like theory of mind. Why would you think that? I don't understand.
Hmm.
But again, all of her research is very, very focused on young white cisgender boys, and again, with a lot of other comorbid issues that
Yes.
prevent a lot of comprehension and all these other things. But there's so many other confounding variables there. But again, Uta Frith is a top-down processor. We are bottom-up
Yeah.
processors. Uta
Yes.
Frith wants a very simple answer to a very complex situation, and then
Hmm.
make money off of it.
Yeah.
It's like that whole thing about there are 4 types of autism. No, that's incredibly stupid. Don't say that.
Hmm.
That's
Right.
ridiculously simplistic. That is very reductionist. And when we can't allow that, we as autistic people thrive in the details. We thrive in learning and understanding, and occasionally getting overwhelmed. But again, our next episode, we're going to be talking about chaos and how this
Hmm.
process
Hmm.
complexity affects us. But we absolutely need to understand all of the nuances of all these things, which is why you've listened to this episode for about 27 minutes so far.
Right.
Because presumably, if you heard Uta Frith bad and then you turned it off, you might not be one of us.
Right.
If you're still
For
listening
any number of
after
reasons.
27 minutes, welcome. Hi.
Yes.
You,
Welcome to the
you,
family.
you've passed the autistic CAPTCHA. So,
Right. The other thing that I want to be really clear about, and we've talked about this before on the show, but I want to highlight it again in case someone's new to us, or maybe if you aren't new to us, dear listener, maybe you've heard it before, but it didn't quite sink in before, is the differentiation between identification and diagnosis.
oh, that's a big one.
And this is how I think about it. And Matt, you can chime in with what your thinking is if it differs from mine. But here's what I think. Um, Self-identification is the process of exploring your own internal process to see what it's like. What is it? What's the description? What are the things that happen? It's figuring out your cultural fit. It's just like, you know, um, any other person who has any identity. Like, you might have, if you're exploring your gender, you might wake up and be like, you know what? I really feel male, right? Why? What does it mean to feel male, right? Or I really feel female. What does it mean to feel female? And like I'm exploring the concept of male, female, non-binary, trans, um, something else, like whatever gender opportunities enter your mind, right? And
Yeah.
going, you know what? Based on my understanding of these things, this fits me, right? And based on my understanding of myself, this is the best description of my experience, right? That's self.
Honestly, it didn't occur to me until this very moment, but that might account why there are so many more autistic people who are LGBTQIA and trans, because
Oh yeah.
the top-down processors tend not to do that.
No. Oh, yeah, you
Yeah,
hadn't realized that? There you go.
because
Um,
they look at their pants and they say, "Oh, hey, I saw
yeah,
that's the thing."
have
So
penis,
yeah,
therefore must have penis associated gender
yeah.
because
I
penis.
I shall go out
Um,
and hunt and drink the
right,
beer and criticize others instead of just have you tried just being a gentle dad? Because
right.
a lot of gender related stuff I don't get. I identify as a cis male, but again, I don't drink, I don't hunt, I don't do sports. I I do
Hmm.
have an epic collection of lightsabers, and I've got a deep voice and a beard, so yeah.
I mean,
Anyway,
but the question, were you to delve deeper into your gender experience is like, what does it mean to be male to
right,
you? You might find as you delve into that that male doesn't cisgender male doesn't quite fit you. And if that's true, great. If it's not, also great. Because you've
exactly,
done the exploration and you've come up with a conclusion that makes sense to you based on your self-knowing.
yeah,
Medical diagnosis, in contrast, is about who gets to go through the gates to get the supports.
yeah,
Okay. These are vastly different things. Okay.
yes, yes,
And so, medical diagnosis is a hoop that we have to jump through right now in order for people to get supports that
yeah,
they deserve because they basically have to prove that they're entitled to them.
yes, yeah,
Right? Um, as opposed to a self exploration where it's like, wow, this is how my brain processes. And since other people's brains process this way and those people live under this umbrella, I bet I fit under that umbrella too.
yeah.
Right? It's no, you have jumped through these hoops. You have met these criteria that we have identified. And now you too can have the privilege of having ABA for 40 hours a week.
Yeah. And that's actually like verbatim how I earlier this week I met with some very very nice people who may be listeners of the podcast today, and I was explaining that as a diagnostician, a lot of my work is unnecessary because
Yeah.
the bottom line is that self identification is free, and
Mhm.
the vast majority of people who do the research are probably autistic because they do the research. There are always a handful
Right.
of people who say, "Oh, I might be autistic," and then they come to me and we go over all of the autistic traits, and they're like, "No, no, why would anyone do that? Oh my God, that's a thing? Really? No." And then I say, "Well,
Mhm.
it seems like you might not be the autistic, but the reason that my job exists is to uh, talk about all of these traits and explain it in a way that non-autistic people can understand. So we can talk about why people need accommodations, mainly at
Mhm.
school. Workplaces are much more, you know, problematic in that regard. But places like the University of Louisville, UK, and oh man, what's there? Ah, Bellarmine. Sorry, it was on the tip of my tongue. Have complimented me on how incredibly thorough my documentation is, and why people need the accommodations that they do. Because again, people will come in and say,
Mhm.
"Ah, I need this many. I need extra time on assignments." Well, why? Why can't you just do it? Because of process complexity, because of autistic inertia, because of the overload, because of the burnout, because of all these things. And they're like, "Oh, okay."
Mhm. Mhm.
And I always give like 5 or 6 pages of accommodations and why they're important. And I was in a meeting at U of L, and they're like, "This is the most thorough evaluation I've ever read." And I was like,
No
"Why, thank
shit,
you.
Sherlock.
Neat." Yeah, that's the advantage of being autistic and knowing why these things happen.
Right.
So people and the accommodations work. It helps people be successful because
Yes.
surprisingly enough, when you're not working against your brain, you can get more done in this capitalistic
Yeah,
hellscape.
life is easier when you're not in an internal battle to fight your nervous system. And
Exactly.
it's not just our brains, right? It's our whole
Oh
bodies.
God, yeah, that's
It's our whole bodies. It's our sensory experiences. It's our ways of processing all the data that comes into us from all the sources.
Yeah. It's your gut dealing with anxiety and all this other stuff, and
Right.
you not being able to go to the office because your gut decided no, today's going to be a bathroom day. So
Hmm.
it's and this is the reason why my job exists, because I do this to explain autism to the world around us. But if you don't need that, if you're just looking for identification, you can do that on your own.
Yeah.
And
Now, don't just watch one TikTok and be like, okay,
yeah,
cool, I'm
no,
that.
that is not the
Right.
way.
That is not the level of research we're
Yeah.
talking about. We're
Yeah,
talking about in-depth reading, watching lived experience people talk about their lived experience, reading from lived experience people who are writing about their lived experience,
yeah.
really taking the time to dig into and reflect on what is it like inside of me, not what I think it should be, and also taking the time to think about what does it mean, like how would I describe the thing, and is there any part of me that's like, if I'm being 100% honest with myself, is there any part of me that like wants it to be some other way? And
Right.
what might that tell me? Like, it is, when you're doing a true self-identification process, it takes a while. I'm not
Yeah,
going to
yeah,
say it
yeah.
takes years for everybody, but it takes a while because you have to really gather a lot of information from a variety of good quality sources and then filter it, and also spend time getting to know your own experience. So if you watched one TikTok and you're like, aha, I must be the autistic, then maybe you are, but also maybe you aren't.
Yeah.
And that's where, if you go in for an assessment, someone who is trained to guide you through that process,
Unless they're
like
Uta Frith. But yeah.
Lesser Udifrith, right? But I'm thinking more like you, Matt.
Oh yeah, yeah. If you go into an autistic assessor,
If
then
you go
yeah.
into an autistic assessor who's used to helping people explore their experience, and they have the knowledge and the awareness of what it's like to have that lived experience,
Yeah.
then they can help you sort of explore what's going on inside of yourself, and ultimately like have some ideas about what's happening that you then can talk about together.
One of the
um
great joys of
yeah.
being an autistic assessor, meeting somebody who thinks that they might be autistic, is to sit down with them and they say, well, here's my latest binder, thump, filled with hundreds of pages of
Right.
notes that they've taken. And this might be the latest of many binders. And like
Right.
someone recently went through all of the self-assessment tests on Embrace Autism, and
Hmm.
on beside every single question wrote notes about why they answered the way that they answered for each of these questions. And I'm like,
Welcome to the family.
yeah. And I went through and just like in this, and
Yes.
then it was like,
Hmm.
and then I took it on a different day in case I was feeling different on that day with all the same things. And
Right. And
what
I'm still pissed off that this question says that.
exactly, because the true self-identification is essentially a self-study in autism,
Right.
because the bottom-up processing compels you to do the research, to find out everything, to
Right.
learn about the nuances, to learn from different autistic voices, to learn
Right.
about why you are as you are. And I might say Uta Frith never did any of that research.
Well, not only that, she actively discredits lived experience.
Yes.
And that,
Why?
like, well, because money.
Ah,
Um,
it's the Scooby-Doo villain. Well, I mean, honestly, Scooby-Doo villains are always money motivated. But yeah,
right.
it's old Uncle Moneypegs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, that level of um absolute authority given to people who have credentials, who keep gatekeeping
Yeah.
what it is, and keep people who have lived experience from being able to name their lived experience. You gotta ask, like, what's your motive there, dude?
Yes. Yes.
What do you get from this?
Yeah.
Whether it's power, prestige, money, all of the above, recognition. Um, but the like no no scientific endeavor. Maybe I'm overstating, um, but this is kind of how I'm feeling right now. I
Ah,
don't think there's I don't think there's any scientific endeavor out there that can afford to take the fact that we are humans doing the observations out of the equation,
right, right.
right? Like
Okay.
even physics,
Heisenberg.
right? Like even Einstein's theory of relativity, and thinking about why might we want to have this?
Yeah,
What is the impact of the framing that I come to this question with? Like that has to be considered as part of the scientific process.
yeah. When
So
I taught at
anyways.
UK, one of the thing when we were talking about the senses, and again, at this point in time, we identify 8 senses, but there's probably more because of all these other things going on. The main 5 that people know are sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell, and we also have interoception, proprioception, vestibular stimulation, the ability to see the ghosts. That they think that's the M. Night Shyamalan called it 6, but no,
No,
interoception is 6.
that would have been 9 then,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
you know
yeah,
interoception, proprioception, interoception, proprioception, and vestibular would be 5, 6, 7, 8.
yeah,
So it
yeah,
would be the ninth sense,
yeah.
the
The sixth
ability
sense would just
to
be Bruce
sense.
Willis balancing.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that would be a very odd movie. Yeah,
Mm,
yeah. The scientifically accurate sixth sense. He's got oh god, a vertigo. Yeah, it was
yeah, there you
just
go.
thump. I,
Well, technically, that's still vestibular,
yeah,
actually.
yeah.
Um,
So anyway, long story short on this, I would bring in a lot of other stuff because I would talk about ultraviolet light, which humans can't see. I would talk about
mhm,
like all the temperatures that we can't feel because either A, it would freeze us, or B, it would turn us
mhm,
into balls of flame. I
mhm,
brought in my EMF detector, which I
mhm.
own, and I had somebody call their voicemail and watch it go nuts because there's an electromagnetic field around their cell phones that is measurable, but not by humans, because our
Right.
human senses are remarkably limited. And
Right.
in
On purpose, by the way,
yes,
because
yes,
otherwise it would be chaos, which we will talk about
yes,
next episode.
again the sensory intensity, but yeah, we are remarkably limited creatures, and to think that our observations are the be all end all, and that we can accurately identify and express someone else's experience for them is the height of hubris. And
Yes.
God, it's insane. And again, this is Uta Frith's stated complaint because she
Yeah.
believes that everything about autism should be observable by her.
Right.
She believes, and this is actually something that she said, that if it's a trait that is documented of autism, she should be able to see it instead of just understand that the, you have sensory intensity, that things are overloaded, that
Mm-hmm.
the chaos bothers you, that these things are real.
Right.
And she as a neurotypical person can't possibly understand it because she doesn't have the biology or neurology in order to grasp that.
So here's a tangent that's not a tangent.
That's a
There is a
riddle.
culture. No,
Yeah.
no, it'll be clear here in a second. There is a culture out there, and I'm bringing this like off the cuff, out from memory, so I may get this a bit wrong, but the concept is accurate. And if I need to correct any details in the show notes, I will. There is a culture out there that does not see the color green.
Well, and that's the whole thing about Japan because there was no blue in Japan. But yeah, go on.
So this culture um didn't have, or maybe it was blue, but like there was a color that was missing, and i
Hmm.
i want to say that is present in English,
Yeah,
that is absent in this other culture, and I believe it was an African culture, but I'm off the cuff here, so I could be wrong on the specifics. But the point is, they culturally never had a need to distinguish between blue and green.
Yeah.
So they never developed the pattern of distinguishing those two light wavelengths.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they're
Now,
cold colors instead of warm colors like orange and red. So it's just the absence of the warmth.
for that, I think I think there was a different explanation provided, but it might be the same thing. But you also see this, or hear it rather, in when you're studying a language that's very, very different from your native language.
Yes,
So
yes.
my native language is English, right? Um, American English to be precise. And there are sounds in other languages that English does not have, right?
Yes.
And unless you tune your ear to hear the nuances between this version of the letter R and that version of the letter R, and that version, and another version of a letter that sounds kind of like R to us, but isn't R, right? Unless you're actually doing the work to tune your ear to be able to hear between those differences, and maybe also even experimenting with like how could a mouth make those sounds, then if you hear those sounds in conversation, you're not going to be able to distinguish between them, right? And
Yeah.
so it's not because um it's not because those aren't sounds, like that's freaking arrogant. It's
Yeah.
because those sounds are not sounds you're used to looking for or listening to, right? So your ear doesn't recognize them. Your mouth doesn't know how to make them. Well, guess what? For someone like Uta Frith, who doesn't have the certainly the training, if nothing else,
Yeah.
to distinguish between these traits and those traits and the nuances between them, yeah, she can't see them, right? Because she's never learned how to look.
Yeah, exactly, exactly, and that is a cultural misappropriation for many things. But again,
Yeah.
she doesn't understand that.
Mm-hmm.
There was a while back. That relates to. Have you heard the phrase "Allahu Akbar"?
I know about Admiral Akbar, but I'm guessing
Oh,
this is different.
it's a trap. Yeah.
It is a trap.
A long time ago, there was news broadcasters, because of the news broadcaster way of speaking, there is a specific way of saying things, and
Mm-hmm.
there you can mispronounce the Arabic phrase "God is great,"
Mm.
but if you say it "Allahu Akbar" in this way, it translates into "potatoes are awesome."
I mean, potatoes are awesome, but that might
Exactly,
not be what
exactly.
you
Yeah, yeah.
wanted to.
So yeah, it's one of those things that if you don't have the nuance, if you don't understand the nuance, all of a sudden
Mm-hmm.
the message becomes incredibly garbled.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Um, at another side tangent, I used to work in an inpatient facility. Right. It's since been bulldozed because
Mm.
they found hundreds of bodies. Thanks, Kentucky. Anyway,
Yikes.
yeah.
Yikes.
There was this really great person that came in, and they thought that he was possibly schizophrenic. I don't know. I'm assuming that it was some sort of traumatic mental illness. But one day, somebody just decided to speak to him in Spanish because they were studying for Spanish, and he essentially said, "Oh my God, thank you for understanding me. I don't know where I am. Where is my family?" Turns out he's not schizophrenic. He was just Spanish. That
Yeah.
is a problem. And that's
Right.
where a lot of these things come in handy. And again, once a translator was on hand, turns out there was a massive mistake. Great guy. I really liked him, but again, because, you didn't bother to, speak to him in the language that he understood, you might have some misconceptions about him.
Right. Exactly.
And that's why we have to learn from the people. That's why we have to learn the language. We have to learn the culture. We have to, and that's why this podcast exists,
Hmm.
to on our part continue to explore the culture, continue to explore why we do what we do, how we do what we do, who does what we do, and to help elevate those voices so that everybody can understand and have a greater understanding from the inside, instead of just making weird assumptions about people, because
Yeah.
that's not how we do things.
Yeah. If you instead start with the assumption the person in front of me is a living, sentient human being who
Yeah.
has choice and capability, is that assumption number one. Assumption number two is there are reasons for why they're doing what they're doing. I may not agree with those reasons, but those reasons do exist.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
start with those two base assumptions, you'll be way better off.
Yeah. And of course, the alternative is chaos, which we will talk about next week here on the
Yes.
Autistic Voice Project, because chaos is our arch nemesis. We are
Mm-hmm.
Batman in the world, and chaos is the Joker, and we
Yeah.
need to
In so
mitigate
many
that
ways.
chaos by any means necessary. So tune in, and we will face the forces of chaos together
That's
on the
right.
next Autistic Voice Project.
Bye, everyone.